It's Dave here from Amplify, and I'm talking to Andy Scott from Sweet. And it's always hard, I do a lot of interviews. It's always hard for me to interview someone who Andy's, I suppose he's more than a legend. He's been around forever. And to do a 20-minute, half-hour interview with someone that should take about 3 hours and to touch a little bit of it is always a bit of a challenge, but we'll do our best here. Especially someone like when I was growing up, because I'm 68, so I'm about 10 years, not quite younger than you. But when I was growing up, we had countdown and stuff like that, and you guys would come on over and play and with Molly and all that sort of stuff. And to think now, I'm thinking that those days are like 14 lifetimes ago, and you were already going for a while when that occurred. So can you even remember, when the band came together in the 60s?
Um, well, Dave, let's start with the point. If you can't get it all in this interview, maybe we should do another one before the
Well,
tour.
well, one of the things that I'd love to do, I want to start a podcast soon about consciousness, because what I always find is, we start with all sorts of pursuits and we do all sorts of things, and we're after money and we're after fame and we're after all sorts of gear. And for some of us, it comes in different formats. For you, it's a pretty egoic sort of process, and there's groupies and there's all sorts of stuff going on, and everyone that you talk to is a star, and everyone you play with on shows is a star. And then you get to a stage where, you go through one lifetime and you have someone passes. In your case, Mick and Brian, they've passed, and they passed pretty early, really, in the 50s. And you just go through different stages. And as you get older and older, you sort of get detached from the need for anything, and you sort of decide that what you're going to do is you're just going to enjoy everything that you do. So you just turn up. And all these people keep on turning up, especially I would think to you, and start looking at you from an adulated sort of perspective. And the way you see yourself as you go further and further is smaller and smaller, because as you become more and more conscious, you become more aware of everything that's out there and more in awe of everything else that you see. And everyone's looking at you and thinking you're a star, and that, they should be bowing before you. And it's a very big contrast. So sometimes I'd like to get into a conversation with people and actually talk about the things that they feel and the things that they experienced that were sort of challenges. That this sort of interview, this is more about the tour and the music and all that sort of stuff, to give someone a sort of a brief connection. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No, that was a good speech. Yeah.
well, yeah, that's right. No one's here to listen to me, so I shouldn't have done that.
You've got it off your chest now.
I got it off your chest. So how did everything, back in the 60s, when the Stones and bloody Beatles and all that had Sweet come together back in those days?
I wasn't there at the very inception, but Brian and Mick had been in another band with Ian Gillan was the singer.
Yeah.
The guy who joined Deep Purple later on.
Yeah.
And it was like a bunch of friends kind of getting together. Steve, the bass player, was brought in from another band.
Yeah.
And it went on like that for about a year and a half. They released a couple of records. They got involved with a guy who was at EMI Records, which was really, and at the end of the 60s, I don't know if you remember, it's certainly in the UK, they were releasing one-hit wonder type singles.
Yep.
And if one of, I said to Brian, if one of those singles had been a hit, that would have been it for the Sweet, I don't think that it would have carried on beyond that. So I said, I'm glad that they weren't, because now I'm in the band, I'm determined that we're going to have more than one hit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just a process of, they didn't have a guitar player when Brian met the record producer who ended up producing all the Sweet records, Phil Wainman.
Yep.
At the BBC, I think Brian was in there to talk to somebody, and Phil was in there delivering some tapes. And they got chatting, and he said, I've got a couple of songwriters that I've met who've got some interesting songs. I'd like you to come along and sing on them. And one of those songs was the first single, Funny Funny. and everybody thought it was fantastic. Brian lied through his teeth. He said, "Is the band still together?" He said, "Yeah, yeah," but they didn't have a guitar player. Not well, certainly not somebody who was part of the band. But once they'd heard what was a demo that became a master, once they'd heard that, everybody was in, and the first thing they needed to do was get a guitar player in the band. Now, I'd met the band before from the band that I was in, and so when I walked into the rehearsal room, everybody went, "Oh, it's Andy from the." And I think I was much different from any other guitar player that they were looking at. I was not a pop guitar player. I was a little
Meaning?
bit. I was probably a little bit more progressive rock, if you like. I'd been listening and playing alongside Yes and bands like this, and I
Less
thought
riffs or more riffs, or what sort of?
well, what you have to understand is the first singles that we released were session. They were steel drums and full orchestra on one, and we had to get out of that. The first thing we said was we've got to get ourselves out of this system. But when we played in the rehearsal room, it was like Black Sabbath, because Mick and Steve were of that ilk. We all loved the Who, we all loved Led Zeppelin and
Yeah,
Deep Purple, and
yeah, yeah,
so it was like and then we started to put what we were doing together on the B sides of the A sides. So you had two different. It was like opposites, oxymoron. You thought that was the sweet, and then you turned the record over and you heard a band that sounded a bit like Crosby, Stills and Nash, or
yeah,
Deep Purple,
yeah,
or and but we played on the B sides, and these other guys, these seasoned pros, played on the A side, and that didn't last long. About a
no,
year later, we were playing on the records, and everything had changed.
yeah. Did you all write?
I was the main writer. I came into the band with some songs, and it was my ideas that we used. But there was always a band thing about if it's going on the B side, it will be written by all four members, even if nobody's put anything into it.
Yeah,
Because in the end, you're a band, and
yeah, yeah.
But
If you
when it came to albums, you have a different idea of writing.
Well, thinking about that, apart from 3 years there, from what I can read, between about 82 and 85, you've sort of been together the whole duration, and that's an unbelievable thing, really, to some degree. Although, like I said, Mick and Brian left at 50, so it's the last 20 odd years has
Yeah,
been the others. And Steve, you're the last surviving member. So
yeah.
yeah, how do you feel about that? Are you sort of counting the days, or you know?
Well, yeah, there is a little bit of that, but when Steve passed, and I still don't know what the reason was, but it was during COVID, and
Yeah,
it was he had terrible respiratory problems.
yeah,
Even when he was with the band, we used to come off stage and he'd be wheezing sometimes.
yeah.
So it didn't surprise me that maybe COVID
Didn't
got
make
to
it
him.
through. Yeah,
No, but yes, I was dumbfounded for a little while, thinking at least I'd always had Steve.
yeah,
Even though we didn't always see eye to eye, there was always somebody there that I could,
yeah,
talk to.
yeah.
You know,
And
but now,
50 years is a long time to be together. 50, 60,
well, it is, yeah.
long
And
time.
even though, um, in the 10 years that the original band was together, is a long time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, exactly. When
you
when
know,
people think about it these days, they're looking to jump on social media and get success in a quick hurry, and
yeah.
most of them don't make it. Was it
Well,
was it?
there's not many bands who kind of stick together
Well,
these
they
days,
don't
are
know.
there?
They don't really know how to, because they don't have sort of these days that you grow up with a phone in your bedroom. You don't really know how to communicate, so
No,
you're not really stopped. Like in those days, back in the old days, everything would stop on the weekend. Everything would stop at night, and you'd have a lot of time to just sit there and drink and do nothing sort of thing, just associate.
Yeah.
Whereas these days, you can, there's in the TikTok age, they're looking for something new every 10 seconds. Was it was
Mm.
it was it one big party? I mean, it must be an unbelievable, 60s, 70s, 80s especially. Was it one big party, or was it a blur, or
It certainly wasn't a blur for me, but I could imagine it being a blur for a couple of the other guys in the band,
yeah, yeah,
um, especially Brian towards the end of the 70s.
yeah,
But for me, it was I was the music in the band.
yeah,
If we all had a part to play, I mean, Steve was the joker, the play actor.
yeah,
Mick and I were the guys who kept the music together, but also beyond that, I was the producer, the arranger, the a lot of it, most of it started with me. So
yeah,
musically, but then you need people like Brian, as a lead singer. You can't do it all,
yeah,
and the three of us in the studio played really, really well together.
yeah,
There's no doubt about that. We also had this feeling, when we used to talk. We used to say, if we can't hear it in the backing track with just a guitar, bass, and drums with no vocals, then it's not right.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You've got to have and the producer Phil, who produced the earlier records, he had the same feeling. He was a drummer, and
yeah,
so his whole thing was, if it all knits together, and you can sit back, and you can go with it, even though you're not hearing any vocals or anything.
yeah,
It's and that stuck with me for years. Nowadays, there are some recordings that we've done whereby we want to use a certain studio for the drums, so we've had to do the track and talk to the drummer and say that there's an inflection there. What do you think? And he'd say, yeah, no problem. And then we go into Peter Gabriel's studio. Is just down the road here from me, about 40 minutes, 20 minutes. And so we go in there and record about 6 drum tracks, and it comes away, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, I've got a place here which is open space. It's a barn, but it's not going to sound the same as a place that is for recording. Do you know
yeah.
what I
Set up
mean?
for recording, absolutely. You're remarkably lucid. No, I'm not trying to be, say that. I mean, for someone that's been around for as long as you have, that's played loud music for as long as you have, that's been a part of a rock music, history for as long as you have. You're very lucid for your age, man, and that's a great thing. I mean, it's a great thing for me interviewing you, but you must be pretty happy with all that. No, I don't
Um,
know. I don't know what the answer to that. It's not really a question.
no.
It's more a comment.
Well, listen, to a degree. I mean, I've got my health issues. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2009,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
still here.
Yep.
17 years later, the team of oncologists at Bristol in England here are absolutely fantastic, and the professor who is the lead, he, I think, thinks of me as somebody who he can refer to on a regular basis. That,
Cool.
don't worry, I've got a guy here who is 17 years in, and he's still going
Still
strong.
kicking it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you describe your sound, and how's it changed over the years, or has it remained pretty constant?
Well, I used to say that there was a template when I found a musician, after the original band, um, especially when Mick fell ill in the 90s, and we had to then get a new drummer. I always said there's a template. If you fit the template, in other words, your voice and your bass playing fits that template, then the sound won't change. And the same with a second guitar player, or the same with the drummer. You've got to have those tricks. You can't just come here and expect to busk it.
No.
And with the hits, it is very much like that. There is a trick. If you miss that push, or you miss that downbeat.
Yeah,
It's going
yeah,
to change the dynamic.
yeah,
But as things have moved on, I now have a band that's 7 years strong now, maybe 8 years strong, and I'm extremely pleased with the way that they're. We got together just before, this lineup just before the pandemic, the
yeah,
COVID thing.
yeah,
So we were then away from each other for about 18 months,
yeah,
but we kept in touch, and we released an album called Isolation Boulevard,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was basically, I said to them, the easiest thing we can do is we've been doing some recordings live, um, and I said, I've got enough drum tracks here to make an album called Isolation Boulevard. So we've done it in isolation,
yeah,
but you're all going to have to put your parts, you know, away from here. Then they opened the gate so that 6 people could come together, but you couldn't live together. So all of a sudden we were able to have days where we could all be together and record.
yeah.
And that was a much different way of putting stuff together, and the album was pretty successful. It started off with a lot of reviewers going, "I don't normally like compilations when
Yeah.
people re-record there," but he said on this occasion, he said what they've done is absolutely astounding, and it was. So I'm very happy with that.
Do you often, because you were together with the other guys for so long, do you often, reminisce like when you're hearing them play some of the old stuff and all that sort of gear? It can't sound the same. Their actions aren't the same. The way they move around isn't the same. Does it feel a bit strange sometimes, like you're in some sort of stranger's place?
Well, remember, since the 80s, 85, Mick and I, and
Yeah,
we came to Australia for the first time
yeah,
when we got back together. So all the way through the changes, and there's been about 6 changes, morphs of the band. I've always got used to the fact that, oh, well, he plays a little bit that way, he sings a bit that way.
yeah. The current.
But as long as you get to the um, uh, you get to the point where you still all need to push it in the same direction. So no, I don't start thinking on stage or
Oh, yeah,
reminiscing.
yeah.
But I tell you something, they all want to hear the stories.
Yeah, of course. Of course, that's what I'm saying. I mean, at the end of the day, I start talking to some people and they start, and, I'm a bit older, so I start to have a conversation. Psycho Mike, for example, from Suicidal, and because, Metallica was supports for them and he knows, rolls off Pantera, Lincoln and all this sort of stuff. All you want to do is sit there like you're a kid in front of a fireplace and, have him tell stories about everything. The other thing I think about
Yeah.
Psycho, for example, I think he did the interview walking around the park because he couldn't sit like this and do an interview. So we talked for half an hour as he's walking around with his phone down here. So all those things are just bulk interesting for me. That's really the reason I do interviews most of the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I do have to say that doing things like this with, should we say, I'm not saying you're grassroots, but you're certainly going to get closer to it than a record company will.
yeah,
Is important.
yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I think it's, from a conscious perspective, I think it's important because when you have a belief that there's a moment in collaboration with it, we're just two people having a conversation. We're not, someone from a media and someone, all this sort of stuff. So I think that you've got to sort of turn your head off most of the time and just try and experience whatever's there, feel it. And I'm sure
I
that
mean, look,
that's what musos do most of the time on stage. They just feel
yeah,
whatever's taking place and perform.
yeah. There's room for everything because when a journalist comes in, he's looking for a headline. So you tend to give him one. You'll say something just slightly outrageous, and that'll be the headline.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure. From my perspective, this is my platform, and I don't really, I've had it for 15 years, and I really haven't bothered with the commercial side as much because I'm more interested in supporting and having an experience. So I know headlines are probably good for most people, but I think I think I can find headlines in just about everything that takes place if I want to.
Mm.
Your latest album's Hanover Sessions, is that right? Last year?
Yes. Last year we had a new album from this lineup called Full Circle. Have you not seen
I
that?
was just having a look at your, I was at Hanover Sessions, but Full Circle's your
Yeah.
latest.
Well, Full Circle was the latest studio album, but
Okay.
the Hanover Sessions
Was
is
alive.
an album from the 90s
Okay.
that's been repackaged with, I think,
Repackaged.
some new mixes and some extra tracks and all that sort of stuff.
So what
And
are you
that and
promoting?
the tour,
The tour. No, I
basically.
understand
It's
that, but what music? What are you gonna play the hits on the tour? Or you gonna play
of
the last
course.
album or just the
Of
hits?
course, we're coming to play a very wide range of ages, and I think everybody who comes into those halls are going to be Street fans, so
And
they're
if
going
you
to want they're going to want to hear the hits, certainly.
if you don't, they'll do a Sid Vicious and throw some bottles around or something like that, probably.
I'm not sure whether our audience these days would do that, but
No, no, no,
I'd
because
take it.
they're all your age. You know,
Yeah.
they're there. But that's a good
There's a hell
thing.
of I have to tell you, there's a hell of a lot of younger element coming.
No, I know, I
That's
know.
that's the joy of the internet, because they go to see a film like Guardians of the Galaxy and they hear Fox on the Run,
Yeah,
and they go, "What the
fantastic,
hell's that?" And then
fantastic. Look it
and
up.
off you go. Mhm.
Now, I remember Frank had a situation, Sinatra on stage, where he forgot the lines and the crowd, someone in the crowd, or they started singing them back, and someone in the crowd said, "We've got you covered, Frank," you know, that sort of situation. Do you forget the lines?
Well, I'm not the lead vocalist, and even the new guy has his slip-ups in the moment. And all I say to him is, if you've forgotten, just point the mic at the audience because they'll give you the clue, mate.
Yeah, yeah. What are you looking forward to most on this trip? Like you've been here a number of times, obviously.
Um, well, being able to come
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the first place
that's
will be a good one.
that's true.
No, I like Australia. I like the attitude,
Yeah.
and I hope it's still the same. I keep saying in a couple of interviews that I've done, please don't change. I think that you're that far away from all the nonsense that's going on in
Oh,
this world.
America, my God.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah, yeah,
ridiculous. There's a 2 hour discussion on its own. Now,
yeah.
now pushing 80, I was wondering what your long term aspirations are. Music.
Um, well, my wife would say, do less. But then I say, you've become accustomed to the way that you live.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
she's not like that at all. But I think she's thinking of me and my health, and um, without it, a couple of years ago, I didn't come on an Australian tour because I was bedridden,
Well,
and they didn't think I was going to walk again. I had a crack in my pelvis,
oh, shocking.
and it's come back together, a little hairline fracture, and the most painful thing I've ever had to go through. Anyway, it's come back together, and I now know the signs, and I know what to do. Um, and I don't move around the stage like I used to, but I deliver the guitar and the voice and keep the band amused, and it's working very well. I mean, the other guys have slotted in very well. It's all well received. I hate some of the travel that we have to go through. Some of the airports are
Yeah, yeah,
better than others.
yeah,
I tend to these days, because of the long walks, either get on a buggy or get on a wheelchair,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that gets me through security a lot quicker and easier
yeah,
than
yeah,
having to try and
yeah.
hobble up and do all of that.
Been there, done
Um,
that myself. I had a few bad years in Sydney when I lived there a few years back, and I've come back and I'm strong and healthy now. But when I was on
yeah,
the crutch and all that sort of stuff, although I'd have to say, when I was on the crutch and I didn't like someone, it was really easy to fall over an elbow in the face and sort of blame the old age. So I didn't mind that too much. All right,
yeah.
let's sort of finish off with a bit of fluff just to entertain the people that like this sort of stuff. Um,
Okay.
what's the best thing? And I ask this consciously. What's the best thing for you about performing to a live audience? Because you've done it for so long, and there's a tried answer, which is, the energy of the crowd and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
if you think about it, what do you think the best thing is to performing time after time after time in front of a live audience?
I don't think a lot of people realize that musicians have to be a bit OCD in order to do this, to perform the same song
Yeah,
night after night, or to sit in the studio and listen to the same track for 2 hours. So it's you shouldn't do things that you don't enjoy.
yeah,
And I thoroughly enjoy playing to an audience, and looking at their reaction is the other spark. So
yeah.
it's a little bit of everything. And I leave the stage and get straight in a car and go back to the hotel, and you know whether it's been a good gig by the way the driver is talking to you.
Plus, they've
You
got a
know,
saying. They say, I wouldn't give you 5 cents for simplicity this side of complexity, but I give you plenty for simplicity the other side of complexity. So I suppose finishing the show and having a good show and sitting down with a drink at the hotel would probably be a pretty cool time as well.
yeah, absolutely.
What's if you had one highlight, one career highlight, what would you say? And you've got 50 years of them, so it's a nasty question.
Yeah. When I co-wrote "Love Is Like Oxygen," we were in France in a studio, and I finally said to the co-writer, who was our sound engineer, playing the piano, I said, "I'm going to record you playing the piano, and I'm going to," because he was writing what he said is a little mini pop rock opera. Said
Yeah.
it's going to end up being about 8 to 10 minutes. And he had these little sections, and he kept playing them. He had no melodies, nothing, just the piano. And from that, I wrote "Love Is Like Oxygen." I didn't realize where it was going to go. For me, it was just an exercise in doing something right. I had the lyrics from a year or maybe a bit more, and I was always looking for something to put the lyrics to. Love is like oxygen. You get too much, you get too high. I was looking for something, and this thing fitted so brilliantly. And when we left the studio in France, we hadn't recorded it because I was still working on it. The usual thing happened when we got back to, and we had a playback in a studio in London. The record company, I could see them shifting. They'd heard the whole album, and they said, "It's really, really good, but where's the single?" They did that terrible thing. "Have you got anything else?" And at this time, the band had just recorded the backing track of "Love Is Like Oxygen." We hadn't even put the vocals on it yet, but I had my demo with me. So we played them my demo, and they said, "That's it, that's it."
Boom.
So when we finished it, so that for me was a big moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, what's the craziest thing you've ever done? Most people don't answer this, so you don't have to answer it because I suppose a lot of them think about something that's probably not going to allow them to get into Australia, so they probably don't answer the question. But we'll pass it. We'll pass it because it's probably not a nice one. What's one topic?
No, I could think of some crazy things that I've done.
Yeah, go on.
Like jumping out of a moving car.
Really? For what? To get away from something?
Well, no, because I said to the driver, "Stop," and he was only doing about 15 miles an hour. So I opened the back door, and then he started to stop, and I jumped out. I
That's
wanted to go back and see something.
that's mad. And did you do any injury?
No, no,
Um,
I didn't even roll. It was one of those, you jump out and you manage to keep yourself going.
yeah, 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 yeah. What's one topic you can talk about for hours?
Probably fishing, fly
Really,
fishing.
really,
Yeah,
fly fishing.
yeah.
Seriously, you still do it?
Not as much. My
No,
back is
must be
is not
hard.
as
I was going to say.
my back is not as good, and walking around, but my wife and I, there's a river called the Test in the UK,
Yep,
which is the probably the world famous fly fishing river, and we
yep,
go down there once a year. We take the dog. They've got a hut. We have lunch. I'm able to take my time and walk up a bank. I never do the full mile or 3/4 of a mile, but I always have a lot of fun, and I'm not forever casting like we used to back in the late 70s and 80s, where we go fishing, me and my friends from the music business. We had a little team called the Rock and Roll Fly Fishers, RRFF, and we used to go to rivers and lakes, and from the moment we arrived at 8 a.m. until something like 7 in the evening, we'd be forever casting. That we might take half an hour
Wow.
to sit down
Wow.
and have a, you
It's
know,
a long day.
it is, yeah.
Wow. What's the thing you like most about yourself? Your hair, obviously. I mean, you've had that forever, and I remember the long straight hair of watching Sweet. Everyone had the long
Yeah.
straight hair.
Um, I would probably say now my willing to listen to other people a bit more.
That's good. Well, obviously, at the start here, you should have just about left after I went into a diatribe of stuff. All right. Okay, this is absolutely it. Current or all time favorites? Favorite album?
Um, Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland.
What a superstar! And most people don't understand how much of a
Well,
superstar he was, but he was.
for me, it's the production with what he had at that time.
Yeah,
It's just
unbelievable,
outrageous, you know.
unbelievable. Favorite artist? And you've seen a few.
Yeah, I've even been on the stage with this guy, and they say you shouldn't really meet your heroes. At Jeff Beck,
Well, what a superstar. Favorite movie?
the producers,
A funny
the
movie.
Mel Brooks,
A,
the
a
producers.
funny movie. No, was that with Nathan Lane
No,
and
no, the original with
with Gene
Zero
Wilder?
Mostel and
Gene
Gene
Wilder.
Wilder. Yeah,
Favorite place to visit?
home.
That's perfect, especially these days. I don't like leaving it. Favorite venue to play?
I've actually played the Albert Hall, but not with Sweet. So playing the Albert Hall with Sweet would put the
Uh,
icing on the cake.
that,
But having said that, I will throw in that when we were on tour with Susie, a couple of years, 3 years, no, maybe a bit longer than that. See, time flies, doesn't it?
yeah,
6 years ago, we had a band called QSP, Quattro, Scott and Powell.
yep,
We were her support band. She supported herself,
yep.
and we played the Sydney Opera House. So
Uh,
that's pretty
the
iconic.
acoustics are pretty good, but the Albert Hall. I remember watching the on TV the 10th anniversary of Les Mis or something or other. They had no, it must have been 20th or something because they had all the Valjeans from around the world come back and they were just sitting there on stage. There wasn't any production. They were dressed and they'd just
Yeah,
come up and sing, but they were all the stuff. It was just perfect. And so
yeah.
Albert Hall, unbelievable place. Favorite food?
I used to say Indian, but it doesn't sit as
Not
well
anymore.
anymore.
Not anymore.
I mean, I'm very happy with something like a Caesar salad or a bit of fish these
Yeah, yeah,
days.
yeah. Favorite. If you have something like Indian, it's not as easy to get around the back to
Yeah.
clean yourself up. So, favorite drink?
um, there's a thing, if it's going to be alcohol, there's a thing in Germany called Radler. It's basically a lager shandy.
Beautiful.
It's a little, and just before I go on stage, a little tip of Jack Daniels.
Favorite person in history, apart from me?
Well, I'd probably have to say my father.
Yeah. How long did he live around? Did he live a long time, or did he pass
He
a long
lived in,
time ago?
no, he lived into his 80s.
Oh well.
He was, he'd be
And
100
what
now.
what do you think of your rock and roll adventure?
Well, he was when he was a younger kid, he used to appear in some of the variety shows,
Oh,
and
yeah, cool.
he used to do a tap dance with a doll strapped to his feet. And he's had so many different jobs, and he's my hero because we had a family of four, and he and my mother split. I don't know the ins and outs, but she wasn't there, but he was for us. So, and that's quite rare when a woman,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Even for the
and
time.
yeah, and I know that he had something at one point. He had something like 3 jobs. He would still take us to the football. He would still support us with everything that we did. And his car used to become a band car at one point with one of my earlier bands. So
And he lived post-war. So anyone that lived through the war and post-war, when it wasn't so
yeah,
flush, now we get everything given to us.
yeah.
That's a testament to itself. So that's what.
Well, he was a teen. He was like still in his teens just after the war, and he used to do. My grandparents started a shop which sold virtually everything, because there weren't that many shops around. So he'd help out there. He'd help out at the railway station where he would become the porter, the ticket guy, everything, and. Look, as you said, it's what you do. It's
Pity,
straight after
pity,
the
I,
war.
pity I can't interview him.
Yeah. Oh, he would be brilliant. Yeah.
He'd have a story and a half. Are
Yeah.
you a clean skin or do you have tattoos?
But no, I'm clean.
Clean. So
Don't,
you can't have a
don't,
favorite tattoo. Okay. Just
yeah.
two more things. One, if you could perform with, and you've obviously seen and performed with most of the people that we think are superstars in the past. If you could perform with anyone alive or dead, uh, who would you choose and why?
When I was coming through in the 60s and the band before Sweet, we used to play a couple of Mose Allison songs, and I think it would be great to sit in with Mose
Really?
Allison.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine. I imagine. And
I
what I
love the life I live, and I live the life I love.
we went a bit long, Andy, but we didn't really go long enough. The other thing I'd say is I'd love to have about a list of about 20, 30 people that I just named and you said, one or two lines about. But I think by the time we got through that and you were allowed to do that, we'd probably have some headlines that we probably
Well,
don't
I've got
need.
somebody waiting anyway, so
I'm
I have
sorry,
to
man.
go.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I held you up. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. It was a lovely chat. I really enjoyed it, and
Thank
hope
you.
you, hope you have a great tour.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you,
Thank you.
bud. Take care.